Welcome to Well, Why Not? Conversations about opening your mind, then your passport. My name is Deborah and I'm a first-generation Haitian American who decided to leave the U.S. several times during my adult life. Currently, I live in Quito, Ecuador, where I've been for the past 4 years. I'd like to share more about my journey with you and invite others who have taken the leap to move away from the familiar, mainly in the form of immigration or expatriation. Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Well, Why Not? As you can tell from today's title, I want to talk about how I started cultivating a life of abundance. I know that phrase sounds a bit existential, or it sounds unattainable, especially if you're going through a rough time, especially if you have, for the most part, felt like you've always been lacking something or lacking resources. And as many smart people, wise people, gurus will tell you, it is all in your mindset. And I had my doubts. I had my doubts for many years. And I finally said, well, everything else that I've been doing hasn't worked. So let's give this a try. And if it works, great. I will have a changed outlook. And if it doesn't, then what's the worst that could happen? I'll just be the same. So about 8 years ago, I was going through a period of high anxiety. And it's weird because on the outside, I looked like, even for me, if I looked at myself from the outside, it appeared like everything was good. I was managing like the kids very well. I was kind of keeping things balanced in terms of consulting at the time, and also being able to spend time with the family, working on like professional development and improving my skills in all senses. I think at the time too, I was still, I would say pretty early in my Spanish journey. So, continuing to work on learning a new language and all of that. So it seemed like, for at least, on paper, as they would say, I had it all under control and I was overall happy. But on the inside, I was sleeping poorly. I was probably eating more sugar than I should. I've always had sugar cravings, but I remember at that time I was especially craving sweets all the time. So I would bake a lot. And I think this is what happened to a lot of people during the pandemic as well. You just, it probably took a minute to realize, it's not only because I'm indoors. There's a reason I'm choosing to eat this way. But overall, I just didn't feel myself. I didn't feel like what my day-to-day, or like I said, that outside looking in picture showed matched what I was feeling inside. So that felt off. It felt like, why wasn't I happier? Why wasn't I sleeping better? Why didn't I feel just calm and tranquility, and all those good things that come when you're in a good space mentally. And that's when I kind of started looking more into that changing mindset movement, like how people, whether it's went from thinking they couldn't achieve certain things professionally to surpassing those goals, or just learning to be happier and living in gratitude. So to me, I think that was what drew me to it. I've always talked about being grateful and living in gratitude, but I don't think I really understood what it took to do that. It wasn't just saying I am grateful for. There were, I think, at least in my case, there were a lot more things that I needed to change in my day-to-day habits that would eventually get me to an automatic space of gratitude. So I didn't have to say it. I didn't have to kind of force or provoke the sentence or the feeling. It just was, I woke up with it and I went to bed with it. So again, I think that was my goal when I set out to kind of change how I was feeling inside. So, where did I start? Because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of information. And of course, everything that I'm going to say are things that worked for me. I don't think it's a one size fits all. And this kind of ties back to the episode I made about money. I think it's like something like expatriating is like money. It'll only make you more of what you already are. So if you're miserable and you choose to expatriate, you're probably only going to be more miserable. And same thing, if you're miserable and you get more money, same idea. So this what I'm talking about today ties into that a whole lot. It's getting to a good place wherever you are, because I think that was my goal. I think at the time I was very much focused on the next thing, maybe like the next place we were going to live, or the next, even not necessarily next country. It was like next home, oh, we're going to, move into a bigger place, or we're going to move to a different neighborhood. And just always thinking about that. Or once at the time, both of my kids were in elementary school. Once my daughter gets into middle school, X, Y, and Z would happen. So it was just, I think a lot of my goals, or a lot of what I thought was going to make me happy, was tied to future and was tied to something happening. I couldn't grasp at that moment that it was an everyday thing. Like I could just be happy every day without anything changing, just as I was. So, what did I do to get started on this journey? I think the first step I took was meditation, and it was hard. I still do it. I still meditate daily, and I remember for a long time it just seemed elusive. It seemed like I could never get good at it. And I always thought, okay, other people can do this, not me. And when I first started, I was using, I forget what the name of the app was. And I don't think it was the best one for me, because I just remember fighting to meditate, and it is a fight. It's a muscle. It's it's like working out. You get good at it, and then even when you quote unquote get good at it, you will have days where you're not as focused, where you're not able to calm yourself down as you usually are. That is perfectly normal. So I think eventually when I changed apps, I currently use the Calm app. I'm not at all sponsored for any of this, but that app I found to be much more in line with what I needed to hear. So the meditations on that one are not, first of all, they're short. They're, 10 minutes, and are there as long as you want them to be. They have, all sorts of different timings, but I started with the 10 minutes, and and it wasn't all quiet. It wasn't all quiet. It wasn't all, sounds of a river or just, white noise. It kind of sets the stage. And again, I think this just aligns very well with my personality. So in the beginning of the meditation, you're told sort of what to expect. Like what's our goal for today? What do we want to be thinking about? And it gave for me a purpose, which just in terms of how I think and how I like to organize my thoughts, it made sense. I was like, yes, let's start this with a goal. And then, you get probably about 8 to 9 minutes of the quiet. You do get it. And that's your time to slow down your breathing, focus on whether it is just your body and all the sensations you're feeling, or just focusing on where do you feel your breath the most? And usually midway, depends, there's a reminder. So a reminder of if your thoughts have wandered, it's okay, bring them back. Like it just works for me. I feel like this is turning into a commercial for them, but it works for me. Again, it's, I think, important for each person to find out, what makes it easy for you to calm down and to calm your mind down. It may be not an app. It may be prayer. It may be just sitting there. I know some people are able to just really sit there in silence and achieve the same thing. But I do think starting off your morning from that place, it changed my day. So my days weren't focused on what I needed to get done, checking things off my list, what I know I couldn't get done, or just all the impending things that were going to happen. Again, future. It just kind of brought me back to just basics of I'm a breathing person and my body is doing all these things. It's getting me up. It's taking me through the day. It's, helping me to accomplish all those things that I want to accomplish. And let me just take a minute to check in. So that was a great start. I don't want to say that starting a meditation routine changed my life completely, but it did. It was like the first step into getting me to recognize the abundance that was already in my life. The second thing, which even for me at the time, I never exercised regularly. I was very fortunate through my 20s. I had good metabolism, like my weight didn't fluctuate even when I had children. So I just never felt a need. And then I got into my early 30s and I noticed my body changing a little bit, and probably all those sweets that I was having, all those cookies I was baking weren't helping. But I just felt it was almost like I knew I had too much energy and it was making me buzz. So I physiologically understood I need to use up this energy. I need to channel this energy into something so that I'm not feeling like I'm operating on 10 when I really could be fine at a 2 or 3. So, and when I say 10, heightened awareness, just extremely just in tune to everything, any little shift, I think anybody who's had anxiety knows what I'm talking about. So when I started my exercise routine, which is now 8 years ago, I didn't know if I was going to stick to it. I didn't really expect to, because I knew so many people would try and never, or had a hard time succeeding at being consistent. And so I said, well, I'll start small. I do not want to jump in and think that I am going to join a gym and go consistently. I actually had tried to do that a couple times before. I realized gyms weren't for me. And probably because at the time too, I felt like I don't really need to exercise consistently. I kind of stay the same size. But what I did was, even in beginning that, I wanted to make sure I eliminated any possibility of excuse. So I didn't want to have the weather as an excuse. So I bought a spinning bike and I said, okay, I'm going to have my spinning bike indoors. There's no reason I can't spin indoors, no matter if it's raining, if it's cold outside, whatever. I also didn't want to overextend myself early on. So I started quote unquote small, 3 times a week, 20 minutes a week. Then eventually, I feel like probably a month in, of course, that first month I was like, oh my goodness, you feel it. And then after about a month, I went to 30 minutes. So it was, 30 minutes, 3 times a week. And I think I stayed at that rate or that schedule for a couple of years. I think after 2 years, I then started to add more time. So still stuck to the 3 days, but I said, I can go 45 minutes. And then actually 2 years ago when the pandemic started, and I again had made sure that I always had the ability to exercise no matter what was going on outside or what was going on. So, if I could go out, if I could take a walk out or, a jog, whatever, I would. But if I couldn't, I always had the backup. So I remember the week everything shut down, I had a new bike delivered, because even though we have a gym in our building, it shut down as well. We weren't allowed to use that. And for some reason, I don't know why, I'll just call it the universe working in my favor. That same week, I decided I want my own bike. I want a bike in my apartment. So once we were all shut down, I definitely wanted to maintain my exercise schedule, because I knew I wasn't getting out. I knew that I was going to have all this pent up energy. And so I added a day. So then now, and actually now I'm at 5 days. I think just again, my body is telling me you need another day. And it's been 8 years. So it's not, I really feel comfortable and confident that this is part of my life. It's not something that I do that's extra. I'm not doing it to reach a certain goal. It's just the same way that I shower every day and I, brush my teeth twice a day. All those other habits that I believe are helpful for my health. This is one of them. And that, I think, even though it was a slow progress, I realized made a huge difference in how I sleep, my patience throughout the day, and even just things that would make me nervous before no longer did. Or maybe they did, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the sweaty palms. I didn't feel like a racing heart or anything. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is not my favorite thing to do, but I'm going to do it. Another thing I did. So again, to recap, meditating, exercising, those to me were really the biggest game changers for me moving towards leading a life or cultivating a life of abundance. I also read consistently. I know that some people just don't like it. I know those who prefer audiobooks, whatever floats your boat. I think part of it is, at least for me, when I read, my mind goes different places. There's that quote about, reading allows you to live different lives within one life. And that's true, I think, even when it's more of like a professional development or something to help build a skill. They too, because, a lot of times it's through stories and you're hearing about somebody else's journey and you either are connecting it to things that you can relate to, or you're learning about something totally new, a different experience that you'd never even heard about before. And I think it does wonders for the mind. And it also, at least keeps you for that period of time from focusing on the potential dread or the potential for something to go wrong, or what if this doesn't happen? What if I don't finish this on time? What if I don't, all those things. So reading has always, but that's always been a part of my life. I have to admit, it was not anything I added. I was always an avid reader. And I've just made sure to keep that, because there are times when I'm really busy and I don't read as much as I would like to, and I notice. Also learning a new skill, and I think that this could easily be tied to reading. So whenever your brain is, focused on acquiring a new skill, it's exercise for the brain, and again, takes you away from you ruminating and having thoughts that are not helpful. And it reminds you, at least again, in my case, of like what you have, like, wow, I just learned this skill. And I have to point out, I do not learn a skill to do something else. Like, I just learn it to learn it. So anyone who knows me, this is like a little running joke that I knit, but I don't make anything. I just knit. I like the movement. I like the focus that it gives me on my fingers. But I don't even care to learn to make anything. I don't want to make a blanket. I don't want to make a sweater. I just want to knit. And, learning different little skills like that, or getting better at taking pictures, or, little things, not anything huge. Because I think when it comes to those big goals, you're getting back into this habit of, oh, when I do this, then something good will happen. Or when I'm able to do this really well, then I'll be happy. That's why I think I kind of dwindled down the idea of learning new skills to just learn a new skill. It's just so you're using that part of your brain. And then I think lastly, this is actually pretty big, and it is another thing that took time, is leaning into those who fill my cup. So it's another one of those, to me, funny phrases, but it makes perfect sense, right? It's, really limiting my time with people who don't make me feel good about myself, or just feel good in general. And it, I think we all know when we're about to have a conversation with a person, or when we're about to have an interaction with a person that will not leave you feeling good, and then you get nervous, or you get anxious, or you go into the conversation not feeling good. So being able to recognize that, and I'm not of the mindset like cut everybody out, I don't, obviously if something is really, if interacting with somebody is really detrimental to your health, of course, but I thank goodness, and I have not had it to be to that point. It's more just limiting those interactions and then spending more time and purposely, deliberately spending more time with people who do make me feel good. So people who, when I have conversations with them, I'm energized afterwards, or I'm really happy, or, I just have an overall good feeling, and I look forward to talking to or being with. And this looked like, I think, for me over the past 8 years, spending a lot of time with family during vacations. So I think I mentioned episodes ago that we made that choice instead of going to a new place for summers or, going to visit a new city or a new country. We would go home. We would go to Haiti because, one, I knew my children were not being raised with extended family, with cousins and aunts and uncles like I was fortunate enough to be. So summer was the opportunity for them to get a little bit of it, even though in a condensed time. And also, again, because I knew that after those vacations and spending time and leaning in to the people who did make me feel good about myself and make me happy, I would feel good. So it was, that choice of go somewhere new where it could be great. And of course, traveling and going somewhere new, that absolutely energizes me. I love it. But I also know that our time on this planet is short, and spending time with loved ones is a privilege, and it's a limited commodity. Commodity is not a good word to use in this case, but it is, it is a limited thing. Wherever the new place that I haven't gone to will always be there, but time spent with my family, I just don't know how long. We don't know. And, and that's for all of us. We just don't know. And I think being abroad and being away from family for the most part has made me hyper aware to that. So I don't take it for granted. And again, it just supports the efforts that I have made to just see everything as already full, to see my glass is full, to see that I have so much abundance, that I have more than I need, as opposed to thinking about all those things that I would like or think I need or don't have. No. So that is it. Those are my, I don't even want to say tips. Those are the steps I took to cultivate a life of abundance. Feel free to share any tips that you may have, any steps that you've taken to make your life more full. Until the next time, be well.